Okay, so basically, I'm gonna be wrapping up these videos, this intro to Grails, which has spanned 14 videos at this point. So it's big. Like there's a lot going on in Grails, and this is a lot of scratching the surface. There's like a lot of depth that you can get into, but like I've showed you with a lot of these things, it's easy to get up and running really quickly. So, but when you want to find out more information and you want to go like a little bit deeper, here are some, just some resources that will get you going. Obviously, Grails.org is a really great one. They have really good documentation. I usually go under, doc and latest. Just go to the single page application. I showed you the plugins where you can find a bunch of various plugins, pretty much figure out like what you want to do. If there's something you want to do, you can figure out if someone's already done it. It might be the answer you want, or it might just be a good starting point. So check those out. I went over SDK Man for installing Grails, so very good tool. There is a Slack channel for Grails, so if you go to grails.slack.com, sign up for an account for that, because this is the place to ask questions. A lot of the people who make Grails are on here. It's a great community. People try to help you out. Although, because it's a Slack channel, if someone doesn't, answer you right away, you might just want to ask again, because like sometimes there's just streams of questions and people miss them. Or you might want to create like a Stack Overflow and just reference it in Slack. That way, you'll have an answer that sticks around longer. That's probably the better thing to do. Something I'm guilty of not doing, but probably should do more. Moving on, books. There aren't a lot of great books on. Well, there are some great books on Grails, but they go out of fashion like really quickly. A lot of them, I would say, are old and outdated at this point. The only one that I would say is really worth it. The other ones that are out there are mainly for Grails 2, so things will be different for Grails 3, so the documentation is probably better. But this particular one, which is done by Bert Beckwith, this is a little bit more advanced. It's not like an intro book. So there's a lot of like good practices in here, and how I've mentioned the has many, page 147, which I've invoked this book before, because when people don't believe me, it's like page 147. It's in black and white. Someone talked about it and explained it in very nice detail. So that is a good book. Definitely one you should own if you're doing Grails. For news, Grails Diary. Basically, Bert Beckwith used to do a This Week in Grails, and I think Guillaume LaForge used to do something, but a lot of those kind of faded away over time as those people got busier with various projects. But this particular person has created Grails Diary, and I'll just click on one of them. He does a very good job of aggregating a lot of different resources, from podcasts to blogs to different events, plugins that have come out, highlighting tweets and various meetups and conferences. He actually put our meetup on here when I said, "Hey, we're having a meetup," and he's like, "Oh, I'll just add that." So, from what I know of him, just a couple emails, seems like a very nice guy, and just has a good grasp of how to get all this information, and just seems to have his ear in the good place to pick all that up. So it's definitely a great resource to see what's going on. And actually, this goes beyond the Grails community. This is more of I would say at this point, the Groovy community, because there's a lot of news about different things that go on in the Groovy community as well. So Gradle and things of that nature. So moving on, there is a podcast for Groovy. which they also mention Grail stuff. This was originally, I think, headed up by Peter Ledbrick, and I probably just mispronounced his last name, and I'm sorry for that. But I know that he's more occasionally on it now than he has been, but I know he started it, and it's been mostly Ken Cousin and Baruch, I believe, have taken it over, and basically they steal a lot from the Grails Diary, which is fine, but they also have some of their own sources and know things, and basically have a conversation about what's going on in the Groovy community, which also includes Grails. Something. Let's move on to videos. So something more recently that's come out since OCI kind of has taken Grails in, and it took in the Grails team and has expanded it. They started doing their own quick videos. And here's a link to the YouTube channel that I found for that. They've been posting, which I think I picked that up from the Grails Diary. So that's really cool that they're starting to do little videos themselves. Also, there used to be a conference called Springone 2GX, which has I think I mentioned broken into two different conferences. So this will become I would assume the G3 Summit, but all the presentations are available on InfoQ, so you can search those down. Here's a few links to previous years. I'm guessing the G3 Summit will be released in a similar fashion, but that has been remained to seen. I put in just a quick link to the Grails 3 preview, older link at this point. But there's also the GR8 pages, which link to the EU, which there's an EU version which is usually held in Denmark, and the USA version which is usually held in Minneapolis. I think it's always been held in those two places. So you can see various videos from those conferences. There's also Greach, which I mentioned before had a particularly interesting video on functional testing. So if you check out Greach, you can find that. Some other videos, which these are a couple of videos that I just put in here, which I think are really good Groovy videos. Because Grails is built on Groovy, so you should probably learn some Groovy too, which you can find a lot of Groovy talks in all of these conferences. But one of my favorite was the Transforming to Groovy, which is done by Venkat Subramanian. Again, I forgive me if I mispronounce that, because I'm not good at pronouncing various names. But it's a really good tutorial, and just kind of I saw this in I think 2011, so it's a little dated, but it kind of opened my eyes of what Groovy can do and some of the power it has, and basically Grails leverages that power to do some of the dynamic things that it does. And things have changed, a little bit over time. New features have been added, but this is a really good, just to kind of open your eyes. There's also Groovy for Java programmers. I think this might have been a Ken Cousin. Let's just check that out. I think that was Ken Cousin, but I know various people have done this, so it could be Jeff Scott Brown, or I'm not sure which this particular one is. Yeah, this one is Jeff Scott Brown. So he did one of those as well. He's one of the main Grails developers. One of the names to know. I think I've mentioned his name. Graham Roche is another. He's like the head of Grails. So those are a couple of the big names to know in Grails. And I know there have been more that have been added, and there's many more in the Groovy community as well. There's also my YouTube channel, which is a bit dated at this point. It has some Groovy tutorials, and I will be adding this list. This will of videos, which I'm working on, right now. But they will also be on the meetups channel as well. So that's pretty much an intro to Grails. Grails 3 or Spring Boot with batteries included. There's a lot to it once you scratch the surface, and this is just a good, hopefully a good intro to it, so that you see the various parts and working pieces, and can just get up and running really quickly and start using it. In my experience, it's been very easy to get up and running. The things I have more issue with than anything else is when I have to dip down into Spring, but that kind of is what it is. But the Groovy and the Grails part usually just kind of works well. Obviously there are trade-offs when using Gorm. Things you have to be aware of. And what I usually do when I find that the ORM isn't helping me is I'll drop down to use Groovy SQL, and while I don't have something up really to show you this, what I usually do is I'll in the service I'll do def data source, and I know there's a how you set this up to you can do Groovy GSL or GSQL, and basically give it your data source, which this will be like an injected bean, and you can just inject that and start using Groovy SQL for things that don't fall well into the GORM, things where you need a specific query. I usually fall back to use just straight GSQL, Groovy SQL, which is an abstraction on top of JDBC, just because it's a little bit nicer. It gives you the ability to do transactions and stuff like that fairly easy, a little bit easier than JDBC. But it'll just basically, it pulls a connection from the data source, and then when you're done you give it back. But if you're doing things like say a report that has to join 5 different tables, I'd probably do it this way rather than trying to figure out how to do it with GORM ORM if I had to do joins or something more complex. Just kind of things to keep in mind. So I think that wraps it up, and I'll end it there for the intro to Groovy and Grails. Thanks for sticking with me throughout all of it, and good luck.